Welcome to today's session. In this session, we will be dealing with hazardous waste, characterization, and related laws associated with hazardous waste. First, before going to the hazardous waste, we will be discussing about what is solid waste. It's a rewind of what we have learned till now. And as we know that any waste except human excreta, urine, and wastewater, we can categorize as solid waste. And what are the different components of solid waste? There are a lot of components that will add up add up as an example for solid waste. It includes like semi-solid waste, sanitary waste, commercial waste, institutional waste, catering, market waste, etc. And we know that street sweepage also contribute to the waste material, which is categorized as solid waste. And when you compare about characterization of hazardous waste, we are coming to hazardous waste. It can be categorized into 4 levels, that is ignitability basis, and second it is on reactivity basis and corrosivity basis, and finally toxicity basis. So there are 4 categorization of hazardous waste. When someone is asking what do you mean by hazardous waste, we can say as an introduction like hazardous waste is waste that is dangerous or potentially harmful to our health or environment. So this is categorized as a definition of hazardous waste. And when we already discussed about the category of hazardous waste, and the nature of hazardous waste may be like liquid, solid or gas, or even sludge also categorized as a hazardous waste in some cases. Generally, chemical process, especially chemical industries, some certain solids and chemicals are liberated and they are categorized as hazardous waste, and if you are not properly handling it, it will result in our health issues and related problems. So proper maintenance and proper handling is essential for this type of waste. Along with industrial sources, some pathogenic microorganisms also categorized under this particular hazardous category, that is hazardous waste. And when you are consider about hazardous waste, the peculiarity of this particular waste is that even at low concentration it will impact heavily. Actually it will impact in a very severe condition even at small concentration. And when you think about the pollution level also, even at small quantity it will result in a severity of pollution level in our water sources and aquatic environment also. In Indian conditions, hazardous waste management is equipped by using some precautionary measures. Actually, some precautionary measures are required for handling of hazardous waste generated within the country from different sources, as well as through import other countries for recovery of useful material. So definitely there will be a possibility of recovery and proper management, and also we have to control the hazardous waste flow between countries also. Recognizing the need for proper management and handling of hazardous waste, the regulation in this regard under the Environmental Protection Act 1986 have been notified by Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India 1989. Actually, some agencies or Protection Act came into existence in order to address these issues and proper management in Indian conditions. And at the international level, the concern raised transboundary movement of hazardous waste is reflected in the Basel Convention 1989 and subsequent follow-up activities. Actually, internationally, Basel Convention is taking care about this movement of hazardous waste between boundaries, and in Indian condition, we already discussed about what law is handling this thing. In recent time, some important steps have been initiated for hazardous waste management. The first one is harmonization of domestic legislation with the decision of Basel Convention. Second one is the program for setting up hazardous waste treatment and disposal facilities in industrial estates or industrial levels. Or third one is to setting up of a national center for clean technology or production within sub-centers in different stages. The fourth step is proper coordination with customs and port authority to avoid the illegal trafficking of hazardous waste between boundary. And the fifth one is strengthening the capacity of central and state pollution control board for regulation, management and handling of hazardous waste. And finally, the sixth one is to set up of a sub-regional training center in India, especially it is located in New Delhi. So these are the different 6 steps they have incorporated for hazardous waste management in India. So we will be moving to Basel Convention, and we already mentioned about the importance of Basel Convention in the initial slides. So it is one of the first and foremost global legal instrument regulating the transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal. When you consider globally, when you are liberating a hazardous waste in a country number one, and it is having a direct or indirect relation or impact on country number two, which is nearby country number one. So definitely there should be a cooperation, and this cooperation between countries uh, related to the disposal and management of hazardous waste is employed or achieved by Basel Convention, and it is also currently practicing. And Basel Convention adopted by the diplomatic conference in 1997, it is called Basel Conference, and it developed under the auspices of UNEP and entered into force in 1997. And the Basel Convention has 111 state and European community in it. The rapidly increasing number of parties reflect the growth, awareness and interest of states in this important sector of environment and health protection. Now we will be dealing with what are the different objectives of Basel Convention. The first one we are already familiar, that is to reduce transboundary movement of hazardous waste and other waste along countries subject to Basel Convention to the minimum, consent with their environmentally sound management. Third one is to dispose the hazardous waste and other waste generated as close as possible to their source of generation. We have to manage all the waste nearby the source of generation itself. And the fourth one is to minimize the generation of hazardous waste in terms of quality and hazardous potential. The next objective of Basel Convention is to ensure strict control over movement of hazardous waste across boundary and prevent illegal trafficking. And the next one is to inhibit or prohibit the shipment of hazardous waste to country lacking the legal formalities. And the another point is administrative and technical capacity to manage and dispose them, that is the waste, in an environmentally sound manner. And finally, to assist developing countries and countries with economics in transition in environmentally sound management of hazardous waste they generate. So these are the basic objectives of Basel Convention. In 1989, the government of India has promoted the hazardous waste management and handling rule. It is short form like HWM&H, and through Ministry of Environment and Forest under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. So these are the timeline of the generation of different laws. Actually, first Environmental Protection Act came into existence, and later Basel Convention came into existence, and we talk about hazardous waste management and handling rule also came in 1989. And one of the important point of HWM&H rule is that the hazardous waste is subcategorized, almost 18 categories they defined, and also the power of state and pollution control board also is defined after the effect of this particular law. Now we will be discussing about different categories. We already told that 18 categories are there for hazardous waste. It include like cyanide, metal finished waste, mercury, halogenated waste, and also waste containing water soluble chemical compounds and all. And how much quantity it is required, or regulatory quantities for each type of category, you have to learn it. The other categories include waste from paint, pigment, glue, etc., waste from dyes, and oil emulsion, dairy waste, etc. Sludge arising from treatment of wastewater, phenol, asbestos, and water from or waste from manufacturing of pesticides, herbicide, acid alkali slurry washes, etc. And off specification and discarded product, discarded containers and container liners of hazardous and toxic waste, and their regulatory quantities. Irrespective of any quantity, sometimes maybe some value will be given on the right side. So specifically just note down that value range and all the 18 category of hazardous waste. Proper selection of a site for treatment, storage and disposal of hazardous waste is one of the important factor, and it is one of the constraint also. So most of the time TSDF is the short form which is used for treatment, storage and disposal facility. And however, the selection of suitable site for an effective functioning of TSDF is a key aspect and depend upon several factors such as waste characteristics, site characteristics, public acceptance and prevailing law and regulation. The facility siting should also incorporate the protection of human health, environment and property value in a community. Even though we have a proper guidance, but in India, unauthorized dumping of hazardous waste is however continuing, and in most of the places, hazardous waste is being utilized to fill the low-lying area, which is not acceptable. General essential element of hazardous waste management are identification of hazardous waste generation source, data collection, waste characterization, quantification of hazardous waste, identification of site for disposal, conducting EIA studies, and implementing TSDF program. So these are the 7 essential elements of hazardous waste management schemes. We will be dealing the first step, that is identification of hazardous waste generation. We know that identification, we know how to identify, because we already categorize hazardous waste into 18 different groups. So even though when you categorize also, there are some hazardous waste which may be present in multiple categories. So there is no information available in these schemes. So most of the time when that condition is arising, or if there is no data available condition is there, we have to take data from State Pollution Control Board or State Industrial Development Corporation or District Industrial Centers, etc. So most of the condition, the data available in these particular organizations are used when the available data is not with us. The second step of hazardous waste management is data collection. In Indian conditions, we will do field visit, data collection from secondary sources or from literature survey, or that is research papers. We will be taking the data and analyze it. In the third step, that is characterization stages is there. That is waste characterization is done after data collection. Characterization is nothing but chemical analysis or chemical or physical study actually. We will take some data, take the samples, that is the waste sample we will be taking, we will do some characterization. That means we will study the physical, chemical and morphological study and understand how much it is toxic. Most of the time the reactivity, corrosivity and toxicity studies have been done after taking the sample from a particular industrial source or any source. Like we have, if you have a doubt regarding a waste is a hazardous waste, we will take that waste and study all those things and find whether it is toxic or not. And most of the condition, if sampling, that is this step is called sampling, and if you are not having a sampling provision, suppose an industry is not permitting you to take the sample, most of the time we will be identifying the data, that is this data is called preliminary data from literature survey. The next step is waste quantification or hazardous waste quantification. Actually in this step, the quantification of individual characteristics or study of individual characteristics of the waste sample is being analyzed, and here we will be dealing with the recyclability, incinerability or disposability of that waste and how we will be disposing it, whether it can be incineratable or that categorization is being done in this particular step, that is the quantification step of hazardous waste. After quantification, the next step is the way how we will be disposing this particular waste. For that we have to rank it, and for that purpose we have to use remote sensing image or GIS image and all for initial studies for the location that we are selected for the disposal, and we have to categorize that one also. Actually the site are to be physically verified in the field and to draw observation pertaining to the 4 different type of attributes. For example, like receptor related, pathway related, waste characteristic related and waste management related. Availability of ranking of this particular site we have to ensure. So these are the steps that you have to do before finding a disposal site. Later, the site with minimum score or minimum rank out of the available site for ranking should be chosen as a site for establishing TSDF, and later the physical models are available. If it is not that previous step is not available, the physical models are already available in the literature that we will be taking and do these particular steps. And after that, the score out of 1000 can be used for interpretation purpose. For example, score below 300 means very low sensitivity, between 300 and 450 low sensitivity, and score above 750 is very high sensitivity. So based on the score which obtained out of 1000, this categories or identification of site is being categorized or identified based on the severity and toxicity of hazardous waste that we are having. The next step is to determine the EIA study on the selected disposal site or identified disposal site, and the impact from the project should be identified and public acceptance should be obtained for clearing the site for TSDF studies. The treatment, storage, and disposal facility should be implemented at the final designated site, and all the layout, that is, if a disposal site is there, the layout of the entire process should be available. Layout is nothing but the initial step of disposal to the final step of disposal. The final step will be nothing but landfilling technique only. Major requirement of a selected site for disposal is that it should contain a laboratory facility to properly monitor the effect of toxicity of the waste regularly from initial stage to the final stage, and whether it is having any adverse effect to the environment or not. That type of study we have to do. So for that purpose we need a laboratory facility. That is one of the major requirement at that site. After a prolonged use, the leachate, that is a liquid which is leached out from the hazardous waste, that should be properly treated by effluent treatment plant before disposal, and the monitoring of ambient environmental quality and TSDF performance should be done regularly during the post closure period. Almost 30 years is considered for that period time of landfill. The major regulatory agencies in India for handling hazardous waste include Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Central Pollution and State Pollution Control Board, and Pollution Control Committees. So these are the regulatory authority to take care about this type of waste. The hazardous waste was first regulated in 1989 through Hazardous Waste Management and Handling Rule 1989, which subsequently were amended in 2008 to incorporate Basel Convention provision, and laterly it again amended in 2016. Actually, the hazardous waste management regulation undergoes sea change. That is, a lot of changes have been done from 1989 to take care about requirement of various stakeholders from me to me. Now we will be discussing on salient features of hazardous and other waste management and transboundary movement amendment rule 2019. Some features of this particular rule is that solid particle waste that have been prohibited from import into the country, including in special economic zone and by export oriented unit, and export of silk waste have now been given exemption from requiring permission from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And finally, electrical and electronic assemblies and components manufactured in and exported from India, if found defective, can now be imported back to the country within a period of export, that is within 1 year of export, without obtaining permission from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So these are the salient features of hazardous and other waste management and transboundary movement rule 2019. Actually, some provisions and some proper guidelines or clarity of movement of material, plastic waste between or electronic waste between country 1 to country 2. If defective condition is there, what will be doing within a stipulated period of time, that all things made clearer by using this particular law. Now the latest and final provision of this particular law is that industries which did not require consent under Water Prevention and Control Act and Air Prevention and Control Act are now exempted from requiring authorization also under the Hazardous and Other Waste Rule 2016, provided that hazardous and other waste generated by such industries are handed over to the authorized actual user, waste collectors or disposal facilities. So these are the salient features of Hazardous and Other Waste Management and Transboundary Movement Rule 2016. Now we will be discussing a small topic, that is plastic waste management and all. We know about PET bottles actually, which stand for polyethylene terephthalate. It is a form of polyester that we are commonly using in our daily life. Just like the clothing fiber, food and beverage packing, etc., we are using it. PET is a highly valued packing material because it is strong yet lightweight, non-reactive, economical and shatterproof. So these are the peculiarity of PET bottle, and it is one of the major shareholders of plastic pollution. Actually, plastic waste major shareholder is PET bottle. Regarding plastic waste, before China banned the import of plastic waste, India was the 10th largest importer of plastic scraps actually, and almost 56% of the waste plastic in India is being recycled. Therefore, the plastic scrap business is definitely a employability opportunity in India. However, concern remain regarding the widespread use of plastic. Experts say while recycling is a good practice, the focus must remain on reduced usage. Several states in India banned the plastic usage and they promote the recyclability of plastic. But there are some states they still find difficulty to ban because of lobbying and other related things. This is all for today's session, so we'll be winding up. Thank you for listening.